I've been a casual fan of horror films since I was a kid, watching Joe Bob Briggs host Monster Vision on TV. That was in the 90s, and the slasher films that came to prominence in the previous decade were censored before they reached the silver screen, and even further censored for TV audiences, but I enjoyed them all the same. I appreciated suspense horror films like Alien, The Thing, Jaws, and Hitchcock's work as much as those featuring slasher stars like Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees. The genre started losing me around the mid-2000s when the popular subgenre established after the first several Saw movies was what became known as torture porn. While some enjoyed them for the forced contemplation of what they would do in the most extreme, horrific, hypothetical scenarios, others enjoyed seeing graphic body horror that made an arrow through Kevin Bacon's neck look like child's play, pun intended. My interest in the genre faded as torture depiction is generally not for me, and in the 2010s, I was even less interested when the mainstream popular subgenre became paranormal threats, which my brain just cannot shut down enough to find scary at all. A few years ago, I even took a shot at writing a type of ghost story just to see if I could make one that I could find compelling. I'll link that below if you're interested. So, every October I watch a few scary movies, and sometimes I catch new ones, and this year I watched two that caused me some confusion, not about the plot or the premise, but about how and why I enjoyed them so much. By all accounts, I should hate Damien Leone's Terrifier and Terrifier 2. Consider this a spoiler warning for both. They contain many of the trappings that my brain despises in horror. They have stupid titles, there's excessive and explicit gore, victim torture, mean-spirited violence without explanation or motivation, and even the obnoxious trope of a sudden unexplained supernatural attribute for a horror character to conveniently and consistently cheat death. So, after watching both of these films teeming with tropes that I detest about the genre and giving you 3 paragraphs of background, we finally reached the question that this video is actually about. Why the hell do I love these two movies that I'm supposed to hate? The short answer has to be that they do so many other things well that I'm able to forgive the things I don't like about them, which, to be clear, are subjective. The gore depiction that turns me off is not only a flaw for the majority of their audience, but it's a selling point. Some watch these movies mainly to see unthinkable acts of human violence brought to life by movie magic, and I want to be clear that I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Well, it's not for me, I understand it. Humans are naturally intrigued by violence. Our brains get excited just talking about things we're not supposed to talk about, let alone seeing things we're not supposed to see. It doesn't make you some kind of sociopath to appreciate the depiction of violence in films or games, and some people are genuinely captivated by the technical performance of triggering deep human emotions with makeup, fake blood, and silicone. So, what do these films do well? In the big picture, they nail the fundamentals of filmmaking that most audiences take for granted when they're done well and only notice when they're done poorly. I consider the lighting, editing, and sound design beyond just the music fantastic in both movies. The costume design and makeup on the main character is particularly stellar, and I should probably stop burying the lead and just say that Art the Clown is remarkable. David Howard Thornton does a spectacular job of bringing the character to life through a wide range of expressions and mime work that separates him from other killer clowns. He's creepy, unpredictable, entertaining, suspenseful, and playful all at once in a way that somehow feels consistent. Making Art a hybrid of a clown and a mime brilliantly lets him straddle the silent mystique of Jason and Michael killers and the charisma of the Freddy or Pennywise types. Comically carrying an arsenal of heavy, sharp, and blunt objects in a black trash bag that would realistically be ripped to shreds under its own weight adds to the comedy and unpredictability of the character that's nothing short of charming. The juxtaposition of Art's delight in his most depraved behavior somehow makes it more tolerable, as you just can't help but divert some of your instinctive disgust to focus on this deranged clown having the time of his life. This brilliantly composed, directed, and performed character carries the films for me. I'm always waiting to see what Art's up to next, and I'm convinced he's the primary in-universe reason I enjoyed these movies so much. Outside the film itself, though, I think there's a macro reason for my affinity with these particular works of Damien Leone. Until relatively recently, horror was the classic place for filmmakers to work miracles with low budgets, as there are endless ways to creatively frighten audiences without relying on 10,000 man-hours of CGI or paying for a Hollywood superstar to carry a film. Over the last decade or so, movies, including some horror films, have become unjustifiably expensive with painfully inflated budgets and runtimes. This has led to mass studio interference, unrealistic box office expectations, and the grimy taste of attempted mass appeal in most movies. The first Terrifier film had a production budget of $35,000 and a final effective budget under $50,000. In a time when $200 to $250 million budgets and 2 to 3 hour movies are becoming common, it's so refreshing to watch a well-made 90-minute independent film with a total budget around what an underpaid teacher makes in a year. It also makes it highly satisfying to see this director pour his heart into a film, doing the makeup, music, writing, direction, and more, with a tiny crew of people, create a film that makes over 8 times its final budget without a box office release. Even if Terrifier 2 is longer than it needs to be, it's just as satisfying for me to see that same filmmaker rewarded with a $250,000 budget for a sequel that gets into some theaters and brings in over 40 times what it cost to make. The Terrifier movies aren't star-studded CGI monstrosities pumped out of a multi-billion-dollar studio based on charts and graphs for what poorly calculating suits believe will appeal to the widest range of people to make the most money. They're labors of love by a hard-working and creative group of artists who put so much heart into their work that even some people who would usually be disgusted by the same kind of movie can't help but appreciate and even love the final products. So if you're someone who enjoys horror films but you've avoided seeing these particular ones because of their reputation as torture porn gore fests, it might be worth giving them a chance despite that reputation. Or they may scare you for life and haunt your dreams, so proceed with caution. Happy Halloween, everybody!